welcome to the deep dive.
Uh,
I am so thrilled you're joining us today because, honestly, we are taking on a mission that affects, like, literally every single one of us.
yeah, it really does.
Right. And our goal today is to completely demystify this massive buzzword. You have undoubtedly heard it everywhere lately. And that phrase is human in the loop, or HITLAI.
Right, which is basically the tech industry's ultimate reassurance policy, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's this idea that, hey, no matter how advanced artificial intelligence gets, we don't need to panic because a human is sitting somewhere in the decision-making loop, keeping things safe.
But, I mean, to figure out if that reassurance is actually real or just, good PR, we are pulling from some phenomenal source material today.
Oh, it's so
We've got excerpts from this brilliant article titled Beyond Symbolic Oversight, Realizing Human-in-the-Loop Clinical AI. It's written by Ousmane Diallo. You might actually know him as the author of The Cognitive Revolution.
a fantastic book, by the way.
Yeah, really great. And this piece is based on a panel that Diallo recently moderated at the GITEX Future Health Conference in Casablanca.
And, what makes this particular source material so vital is the actual composition of that panel. Like, Diallo wasn't just interviewing theoretical tech philosophers sitting in a cafe in Silicon Valley.
Right.
He brought together 4 frontline practitioners, people who are actively running entire health systems across Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, these are executives and doctors who are deploying artificial intelligence right now, today,
Right.
to combat severe workforce shortages and, fragmented physical infrastructure.
So it's not theoretical at all.
Exactly. We are not looking at academic hypotheticals. We are looking at live, high-stakes implementation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Is human in the loop a genuine functional safeguard in healthcare? Or is it just a symbolic checkbox designed to make us feel better about machines making our medical decisions?
Well, to answer that, we first have to recognize why the current kind of surface-level understanding of this buzzword is just fundamentally broken. The panelists made it very clear that treating human oversight as just, a physical presence is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and they did not ease into this topic at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Professor Mehdi Soufi, who directs Morocco's most technologically advanced teaching hospital, he kicked things off with this incredibly blunt question to the audience.
Oh, I loved this part.
He asked, and I quote, "Will anyone go to a hospital to be treated by a robot and say, 'Go ahead, treat me'?"
And of course, the immediate reaction from the room was just laughter.
Okay.
Because it sounds like this dystopian science fiction trope, right?
Like something out of a movie.
Exactly. But Sufi used that reaction to point out a massive blind spot because hospitals are already doing this. AI is already operating in triage systems, diagnostic imaging platforms, treatment recommendation workflows. The robot is already treating us.
Which is when Soufi shared a real-world case study out of France that completely silenced the room. And just a heads up to you listening, this is a dark scenario, but it flawlessly illustrates what happens when we misunderstand AI oversight.
Yeah. It's a tough story, but so important.
So a patient used an AI-driven diagnostic application and inputted his symptoms. The system processed the data and flagged a high probability of cancer. The patient received this automated notification, suffered a massive panic attack, developed severe tachycardia, which is a dangerously rapid heart rate, and ultimately died from the cardiac event. And the devastating reality is he did not actually have cancer.
Wow. And what's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of that failure.
Yeah.
If you look closely at the software's parameters, the AI didn't actually malfunction.
Wait, really?
No, it executed its core programming perfectly. It cross-referenced the inputted symptoms against a vast database and outputted a statistical correlation. Basically, if symptoms X and Y are present, there's a historical 60% correlation with disease Z.
But that raw statistical correlation was delivered with absolutely zero context. It functioned like WebMD on steroids.
Yes.
You know how you can search a mild cough online and 10 clicks later you're convinced you have weeks to live?
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. Now imagine that exact same dynamic, but the information is pushed to you by an official, hospital-endorsed medical application. It lacked any capacity to understand the patient's psychological fragility or read his medical history of severe health anxiety.
That analogy actually highlights the structural problem perfectly because the system operates purely on probability, but humans receive information emotionally.
Exactly.
And AI delivers a statistical guess with the exact same tone as a definitive formal diagnosis. It cannot sit on the edge of a hospital bed, read the patient's body language, and carefully frame that statistical risk in a way that is, medically responsible and comforting.
But wait, let me look at this from the perspective of the tech developers for a second. If we apply the strict definition of their buzzword, wasn't a human technically in the loop in this French case study?
Technically, yeah.
Because the patient himself was using the app and receiving the data.
Right, but being physically present in a workflow is not the same thing as having oversight. The standard defense completely collapses here because that patient had zero clinical training. Oh, I see.
They possess no framework to contextualize what a probabilistic risk vector actually means, nor did they understand the inherent limitations of the algorithm that was generating that number.
So just slapping a human at the end of an automated assembly line doesn't magically neutralize the danger.
Not at all. And that realization is what prompted Ousmane Diallo to intervene during the panel with a totally new framework. He argued that if we want this concept to be a real safeguard, rather than just like a legal shield, health systems must guarantee 3 specific non-negotiable conditions.
Okay, let's dive into those. The first condition Diallo lays out is proximity to the decision. Now, initially, I assumed he meant physical proximity, like a doctor sitting in the same room as the server or something.
Sure, that makes sense.
But he's talking about something much deeper than that.
Yeah, the term he uses is epistemic proximity. To break that down, epistemology is simply the study of how we know what we know.
So in a clinical setting, epistemic proximity means the human operator must thoroughly understand the why behind the machine's conclusion. It is mechanically useless for an AI to just spit out a command like administer 50 milligrams of medication.
Right, it needs to show its work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The interface itself has to highlight the specific data sources it prioritized, display the confidence intervals, and flag any anomalies that led to the recommendation.
Because if a clinician is staring at a black box that just spits out an answer, they have no foundation to either endorse that answer or override it.
Precisely.
Which brings up a brilliant example from another panelist, Dr. Jean-Sir Dimitri Ouattara. He heads up the digital health strategy over in Burkina Faso, and he shared this massive operational failure regarding digital dashboards.
Oh, yeah. It serves as a perfect masterclass in how a lack of proximity just destroys utility.
Seriously. So his team rolled out these highly advanced, centralized dashboards designed to aggregate data from countless fragmented health tools across the region. And if you looked at it from a software developer's perspective, it was a masterpiece.
Beautiful code, I'm sure.
Right. Real-time updates, gorgeous data visualizations, perfect server uptime. But when they put it in front of the actual doctors, total rejection. The clinicians completely ignored the system.
And the failure occurred at the architectural level. The developers built a system optimized for data aggregation, not clinical decision-making.
Yeah.
Dr. Ouattara realized that the dashboards were burying the actual medical signals under a mountain of operational noise. I mean, a doctor doesn't need a pie chart showing total regional bed capacity when they're trying to figure out why a specific patient's white blood cell count just spiked.
Makes total sense.
The system failed to provide the necessary clinical context, so they had to tear the entire infrastructure down and rebuild the user interface strictly around the physician's cognitive workflow.
I hear that, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a minute.
Yeah.
Isn't the fundamental promise of artificial intelligence that it processes a volume of data that human brains simply cannot handle?
That is the pitch, yeah.
So if an understaffed doctor has to stop and manually verify the algorithm's data sources and logic paths every single time it suggests a diagnosis, doesn't that entirely defeat the purpose of having high-speed automation?
Well, that assumes understanding the logic requires doing the math by hand, which isn't the case at all. Epistemic proximity simply demands that the logic is accessible and clinically intuitive.
Okay, accessible how?
Consider the liability mechanics. When a doctor signs a patient's chart, they assume ultimate legal and professional responsibility for that outcome.
Right.
They cannot stand before a medical review board and say, well, I administered the treatment because the computer told me to. They must be able to defend the clinical reasoning.
Yeah, the black box made me do it is not going to hold up in court.
Exactly.
And that concept of liability transitions us perfectly into Diallo's second condition for meaningful oversight. And here's where it gets really interesting. Condition 2 is authority to change the decision.
And this condition exposes the massive gap between having theoretical permission to do something and having the actual systemic power to do it.
Totally. Because on paper, every single medical AI tool includes a disclaimer stating the physician retains final decision-making authority.
Sure, the fine print.
But Diallo points out that preserving the space for human judgment when the machine disagrees with you requires real institutional backing.
Yeah, the illusion of authority is perhaps the most insidious element of the human-in-the-loop concept. Genuine authority requires an environment that affords the clinician time, institutional trust, and protection from retribution.
Let's focus on the actual day-to-day cost of overriding these systems. The source material details this beautifully. If an AI recommends a treatment path, and the doctor looks at the patient and realizes the algorithm is missing a nuanced biological reality, what actually happens when they click disagree?
That is the million-dollar question.
In many modern hospital networks, overriding the AI triggers a cascade of bureaucratic friction.
It's unbelievable. The system is quite literally designed to discourage human intervention.
Think about your own experience in the corporate world for a second. Imagine you have a manager who constantly promotes an open-door policy. They insist that you have full authority to challenge their strategies.
We've all had that boss.
Right. But you also know that if you actually do challenge them, you have to file an incident report, write a 500-word justification, submit it to a review committee, and take on immense personal liability if your alternative plan fails.
Yeah, no thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you going to challenge that manager? No. You are going to keep your head down. And clinicians do the exact same thing. They defer to the algorithm.
And we have to be clear about the motivation there. They aren't deferring because they suddenly believe the machine possesses superior clinical intuition.
No.
They are deferring because the hospital's software architecture has made exercising their authority professionally exhausting. The path of least resistance is simply to click approve.
Which brings us to the third, and what Diallo considers the most difficult, condition to achieve. The ability to step back and reflect.
And this specific condition directly assaults the primary value proposition of the tech industry. I mean, when developers sell AI to hospital administrators, the central promise is velocity.
Speed. Everything is about speed.
Faster triage in the waiting room, faster imaging analysis, faster patient turnover.
But the practice of medicine cannot be exclusively defined by velocity. Certain medical decisions fundamentally require slowness.
Absolutely. Rabia Kozine provided a vital counter-perspective on the panel. As a cancer survivor who now builds patient community platforms, she approaches this from the vulnerabilities of the hospital bed, not the boardroom.
Right.
And she outlined a profound fear regarding what she termed unverifiable dependency.
That concept is so fascinating. Let's dig into how that actually plays out in a hospital setting.
Well, unverifiable dependency occurs when an algorithm is calculating millions of data points to generate a highly complex treatment plan like, say, a specific chemotherapy dosage matrix, and doing it in fractions of a second.
Okay.
The human operator literally does not possess the cognitive processing speed to verify the math in real time. Because they cannot verify it, they become entirely dependent on it. And over time, that dependency creates a massive deterioration in independent clinical intuition.
Imagine putting yourself in that specific workflow. Think about a time you were navigating an online checkout or, like, tax software, and the screen flashed a massive countdown timer urging you to click confirm to proceed.
Oh, it's so stressful.
You experience an immediate cognitive narrowing. You just want to clear the prompt. Now, put yourself in the shoes of an ER doctor at hour 10 of a grueling shift.
Exhausted.
The AI flashes a diagnostic recommendation. The hospital's efficiency metrics demand that the queue keeps moving.
Yeah.
How does that doctor find the mental space to step back, look at the physical patient, and critically reflect on whether the machine's output actually makes sense?
Mechanically, that space simply does not exist. A digital architecture that constantly demands frictionless, instantaneous action actively strips away the very human judgment that the loop is supposed to protect.
Yeah.
If the environment does not allow the human the time to think critically, you haven't implemented human oversight. You have just installed a fleshy button pusher.
A fleshy button pusher. Man, that is a grim visual, but it captures the reality perfectly. So if the current implementation of this technology is largely generating bureaucratic friction, diagnostic panic, and an illusion of control, what does it look like when a medical system actually gets this right?
Well, for a benchmark of success, we can look to another panelist, Amin Moussaoui. He manages the blood transfusion systems for Morocco.
Which, managing blood transfusions is an environment with absolutely zero tolerance for operational error.
None.
Administering the incorrect blood type is an immediate catastrophic event.
Exactly why his standards for digital implementation are so incredibly rigorous. During the panel, he delivered a metric for success that completely reorients how we should think about software. He stated, and this is brilliant, "The day clinicians stop talking about the information system is the day we have succeeded."
I love that. Success isn't defined by how many features the software has. It's defined by the day people stop talking about it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Mosawi is not suggesting a move toward blind background automation where the AI acts as a shadow doctor.
Right.
He is defining success as operational invisibility. A truly functional oversight system disappears into the clinical workflow.
It doesn't throw up redundant warning banners. It doesn't require a clinician
Yeah.
to navigate through 5 submenus just to verify a patient's allergy history.
Exactly. It delivers the precise data required at the exact moment of clinical necessity in a format that the human brain can instantly contextualize. It augments the physician's expertise without aggressively competing for their cognitive bandwidth.
But getting a complex AI to reach that state of invisibility is a massive engineering challenge. Mosawi explained that achieving it requires what he calls a relentless alignment across 3 distinct dimensions:
Yes, the triad.
technology capabilities, business processes, and user needs.
And we can look at how those dimensions interact mechanically. The technology capability might be an incredibly fast database, right?
Okay.
The business process is the hospital's logistical protocol for moving blood from the lab to the surgical wing. And the user need is the floor nurse requiring an immediate, intuitive way to verify the blood type without wrestling with a clunky tablet interface while a patient is crashing.
Right, because every second counts.
Exactly. If any single point in that triad is misaligned, if the tablet is slow or the protocol is overly complex, the entire system fails the patient.
So what does this all mean? When we synthesize the insights from Diallo's framework and the lived experiences of these African healthcare leaders, the conclusion is undeniable. Human in the loop can no longer exist as a lazy corporate catchphrase.
Absolutely not.
Designing real safety requires a fundamental shift in organizational culture, one that aggressively prioritizes clinical judgment over raw algorithmic speed.
We must stop accepting the buzzword as proof of safety. The text demands that we start relentlessly interrogating these systems.
Yes.
When a developer claims there is a human in the loop, we have to demand specifics. Which specific humans are involved? At what exact point in the algorithmic loop do they intervene? What systemic power do they actually wield? And crucially, what is the professional penalty for utilizing that power?
Because if we fail to demand those answers, we are left with the reality that opened this discussion, a reality where a patient receives a cold, mathematically derived probability without a human buffer, panics in isolation, and dies from the fear of an illness he never possessed.
And that scenario is the ultimate, irreversible consequence of deploying symbolic oversight and calling it meaningful control.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on, something that stretches just beyond the boundaries of our source material today.
Okay, lay it on me.
We have spent this deep dive exploring the immense danger of humans blindly following a flawed algorithm, right? We've established that doctors must possess the genuine, unencumbered authority to override the machine.
Right, that's the whole point of Condition 2.
But what happens when we encounter the inverse scenario? Imagine a situation where the AI's complex diagnostic calculation is entirely correct, but a highly experienced clinician exercises their authority to override it based on a human gut feeling, and the human gets it disastrously wrong.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it introduces a profound tension regarding how we measure accountability.
Exactly. If we successfully redesign our hospitals to grant humans the true power to override the machine in the name of safety, how do we handle the liability when the human ignores perfectly accurate math and makes a fatal error? Are we prepared to accept human fallibility in an age where a machine might have known better?
That is a really tough question to answer.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the invisible systems operating around you, and we will catch you on the next one.